A couple things they eat in Guatemala is one thing called tacuacin, which I realized later, I thought it was like a giant rat because that's what it looks like, but I realized later it's possum. In one of my areas, like a guy just set up traps like down in the gully, and he trapped a bunch, and then like the entire neighborhood that day took out their little grill outside on the street, and they were cooking this giant rat thing that was actually a possum. And then right during the rainy season, when it starts in May, there's this thing called sampopo, which is like a giant ant with wings. So like I think the rain, something with the rain like brings them in, like right when the rainy season starts. And then you'll see them all on the street, these like ants about that big. And the interesting thing is that people actually eat them. So they're like, you'll see little kids or whoever like with little plastic bags, and they'll pick them up off the street. And then I think they'll like take a part off, and they'll take the wings off, and then they like fry them up in oil or in margarine or something, and then people eat them. And you can even buy them in the store. They're really expensive because they're only for like a week or two during the year. But they're not bad. They taste kind of like butter, kind of like toasty a little bit. So there was an experience where we were out visiting with a member. We'd gone down a place we'd never gone at night, and it was kind of late. And when we were coming back, I heard someone say like, "Oh, are you lost?" And I kind of ignored it, and then I heard another be like, "Yeah, I think they're lost." And then another guy was like, "Oh, get the flip out of here." And then I realized like I thought they were kind of separated, but they're all kind of in the same like gang or clan or group or whatever. And so as we got towards the car, we were with a member and we were going towards his car. One of the guys like started shoving my companion, and I was like, "Oh, take it easy, like we're leaving right now." And so then the member unlocked the car, the member and my companion got in, and then of course my door, I was getting in the front and it didn't unlock. So I was like, "Oh," and then I like pushed over my companion really quick, and then I got in the car, and right as I shut the door, the guy like punched the window really hard. Thankfully it didn't break, and then another one like punched the window on the other side, and they like all kicked the car, and then we sped out really fast. So yeah, I think there were kind of drugs that were involved in that or something, but it was kind of just a little bit of a sketchy experience. So you just need to be careful. During the day, usually there's not that much going on, but you just need to be careful where you are at night to make sure you're not in a dangerous area. I remember also I was in another area, I was in divisions with another American, and we were down, and we had to go to this appointment down in this kind of alley, and we were going down the alley. It was pretty dark, but like kind of the whole area is like that. It's kind of a poor alley area, and so we're going down, and I remember he said, "Maybe I don't think we should be here." And then right after that, we heard a bunch of gunshots, pretty close, so we just ran as fast as we could and got out of there. And then we didn't really go down there at night anymore, which is good. And other than that, I just remember that Guatemalans, like, you can buy cans and bottles of pop, but most people drink them in glass bottles that are thick that you like return because they're way cheaper since they don't have to pay for as much packaging. And so they're really thick and pretty heavy. And I remember walking down the street one time and someone like, some drunk guy or something from across the street just threw the bottle, and I like saw it when it was right there, right in front. And then thankfully it landed at our feet because he was drunk, so he didn't have that good of aim. So there's always like kind of some experiences. Thankfully I never got robbed on my mission, so that was good. I think one of the most important things I learned on our mission is that as missionaries, we like really don't do anything. I think one of my favorite parts of the mission was that truly I came to know that we're instruments in the hands of God. That even though we're the ones like knocking the doors, walking the streets, that we're not the ones that make people convert to the gospel. That truly it's something important in what we're doing. It's something that God has allowed us the opportunity to do that, to be those instruments. But truly that it's the Spirit that converts people. That converts us as missionaries, that converts us as members, that converts other people that we had taught. That's something I definitely learned, is that we don't really do much in our callings and anything we do. It's God that does it, but He allows us to be instruments in that work. For me, the hardest thing about being a missionary was working with my companions. Some of the companions, like a couple of them I'm really good buddies with and we got along super well. But other ones, it's just sometimes it's hard to see eye to eye. You have different levels of how you want to work, the way you want to work. There's some people that have, there'll be different missionaries that'll have different commitments to the gospel, to being a missionary, and you'll really be able to like see their motives for doing that. So I think that was the hardest thing, is being able to, despite our differences, work together as a companionship. because it's really important to have unity as missionaries. If you don't have unity, you're not going to have the Spirit, and you're not going to be able to be an effective tool. So I'd say just the best thing is to just love your companion. Love him for who he is. Don't judge him. And look for the best in him. Look for ways to compliment him, see the good things he's doing. And think of ways to justify what he's doing, because we really don't know why people act the way they act. But serving them is the best way to, doing simple things of service is the best way to be able to grow to love them as the Savior would love them. In one of my areas, we're kind of having trouble finding new investigators. Just one week it kind of gone bad. Usually we'd find, in Guatemala, I usually find about 20 or more where I was in this area a week. And I think we'd gone all week and we only found about 7 investigators up until Saturday. So I remember on Sunday, it was Fast Sunday, and I decided to fast, specifically asking God to help us find investigators, help us find investigators that wanted to progress, that were ready to hear about this gospel. And so I started my fast on Sunday afternoon, after church, after eating lunch. And by the end of that night on Sunday, we'd found 10 investigators. So we'd more than doubled what we had found. New investigators, we doubled what we'd found the entire week. And amongst one of those people was a man named Mario. And Mario was truly prepared by God. We didn't prepare him. We didn't do almost anything. But he was prepared by God to accept this gospel in that time. I especially noticed that when we taught him the word of wisdom. Because pretty much everyone in Guatemala has a problem with one of the things of the word of wisdom. Most of it is coffee, because everyone drinks coffee. It's like a Guatemalan thing that they'll like put it in the little baby's bottle when they're little and give them coffee because it's really cheap. But I remember when we taught him the word of wisdom, so we told him the 5 things that we don't consume with the word of wisdom. And we asked him, oh, like, do you have any challenges with these 5 things? And he said, I used to drink coffee and tea, but about 2 or 3 days ago, I stopped drinking them because I felt it wasn't good for me. I know that was from the Spirit. He started to keep a commandment a few days before we even taught him about the commandment. He truly was an elect of God. He eventually got baptized. He has gone to the temple to do vicarious baptisms and confirmations, and is a great strength of source for all his little brothers that eventually later got baptized. I also taught someone named Juan. His name was his wife's name was Alma, and she had just gotten baptized about 2 weeks before, I think, when I came to the area. And Juan hadn't been baptized yet. They were both going to church pretty much every Sunday. The only thing that Juan really struggled with was that he had to quit smoking. That was like what was holding him back. You could tell that he had mostly gained a testimony that he liked the church. So we were kind of especially focusing on him while also helping her to stay active and do the things that she needed to do as a new member. Juan kept trying, and he eventually quit smoking for long enough and he got baptized. I remember I left the area shortly after his baptism, but I would keep calling him every once in a while, because what we did finally when we were there to help him quit smoking is that we would usually go to visit him every other day, and the days when we didn't go, we would call him to make sure how he was going with his plan to quit smoking and how it had gone that day. Sometimes with successful days and sometimes with not successful days. So then after I would call him every once in a while to see how he was doing, see if he had still not smoked. And I remember I talked to him a little bit after, and he said I felt that he had smoked. But I motivated him again, helped him to keep going with his plan. And then I talked to him, I think, for about 9 months to a year. I would call him just every once in a while and see how it was going. And he would tell me, like, I went a week and a half, or I went 2 weeks, and then I smoked a half a cigarette. So he wasn't like, he'd improved so much from where he first was, but he still had that temptation that was always there that he would fall into every once in a while. That was like just enough to keep him back from getting the priesthood and really like advancing in the gospel and having responsibilities and all the things he needed to do to stay active in the church. And I remember I got a call, I think about a year after I'd left the area, and it was from one of my mission leaders, and he told me that Alma, his wife, had passed away. That she had had a stroke, and then she was in the hospital for a little while, but she had passed away. So the first thing it was obviously really sad for me to hear that. But I think the first thing I thought of was I wasn't sure how Juan was going to take that. Sometimes people take trials, new members or converts take trials as it'll strengthen them, but oftentimes it'll drive them into inactivity and other things like that. So I was worried about Juan. I remember I called him after I got that call from my mission leader. I asked how he was doing. He was obviously really broken up, but I called him that first time, and then I think I called him about a week later, give or take, and he had quit smoking. And then I talked to him about a month or two later, and he told me that he'd met with his branch president and he had the goal to receive the Aaronic priesthood in about a week, and then receive the Melchizedek priesthood in state conference a couple weeks after that. And we stayed in contact, and he eventually received both priesthoods. And I really saw the difference. Before, it was his own strengths trying to quit smoking, and it was never enough. After his wife died, it was enough motivation it was an eye-opener for him to rely on the strength of the Lord. Through his own efforts, but through the grace of God. Through his strength, it was enough for him to completely quit smoking. And now Juan is active in the church, and the best thing is that he's preparing to be able to be sealed to his wife. And I know that's one of the great blessings of temple work, and it's something that often converts don't understand, but he understood that and has had the spiritual confirmation that it's something he's going to do, and he has that goal.